live. That's super exciting. So, welcome everyone to this Agent Intelligence. We are exploring everything AI agents in Web3, the future, the past, the challenges, all about around AI agent builders and developers and the ecosystem leaders. So, for anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Francisco. I'm part of the developer relation at MetaMask, but I'm also contributing to MotorDAO. I'm super excited about agents right now. That's what we're building. And today we are diving deep into the technology and the vision about Kowali. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Welcome, Eric. It's a big pleasure to have you here. And you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Thanks, Francesco, for having me here. Of course, I'm Eric. I'm a core contributor to Kawaii, the world's first blockchain engineer and AI agent. You pronounced it just close enough. It's a name play on the Japanese word kilt, so it's
Oh,
kawaii.
nice.
But instead, it's kawaii, so KOL, and then kawaii. Thanks for
Nice.
having me here.
That's a pleasure. For a moment, I thought it was some kind of game developer environment or something. That's actually good. How it came the name? Like,
Yeah,
is it?
and so
Yeah.
we thought about it, right? And we were thinking about like different vertical AI agents that we could be building now, and finding a wedge into the market. And
Hmm.
we my background is of course as well software engineer, and one of the biggest problems that I see builders have is kind of like having an active voice, and as well being a key opinion leader, right? On kind of like the projects that
Of
they're
course.
building. And so that's where the KOL piece came in. And then it was just a natural, like, how can we turn this into a pun? How can we intertwine it with different words? And so naturally, AI agents is very intertwined with like the Japanese culture right now. So you see like all these waifus,
Hmm.
all these kind of like different avatars are being
Yeah.
built out whenever we build out the AI agent. And so, we dig into like some deeper words. And so that's where Kawaii came into play.
This is cool. This is cool. Love the name. And yeah, okay, let's get a little bit like started here with some kind of like foundation question. So specific on Kauai, right? So what kind of problems you were initially trying to solve with this agent or mostly like with the frameworks?
Yeah, definitely. And so maybe go into a little bit of background on like how we got here, right?
Yeah,
And
please.
so I think practically most programmers today use some form of AI to help them code, right? But then you notice that like they're constantly battling with the AI tool that they're using. So for example, you have to like pre-fill the context with Claude, ChatGPT to give them more context of what they're building out. And this becomes predominantly more of a common whenever you are dealing with a specialized like vertical like blockchain where
Hmm.
LLMs aren't as good with development in blockchain, right? And so, like for example, Solidity, you have to really fill up the Claude context or ChatGPT context with a lot more information, just so that way you get a reasonable response. And so, this is kind of like where we thought about how can we make the experience better for developers? How can we actually help accelerate more blockchain developers and being able to build, right? Practically every other industry is using AI in some form of fashion to help them
Hmm.
build faster. Whether you're building out games, you're building out websites, but whenever you think about it from the blockchain side, how can we help accelerate people build out more smart contracts, deploy them faster, and create a really good experience? And so that's kind of where we hone into, making Kawaii the world's first blockchain engineer and AI agent focused on smart contract development.
Oof, that's also very specific on the smart contract side, and I think actually this is something that I had as a pain point also as developer. That I actually like started to test like stuff like with Cursor Pro, and I've always felt like I'm not trusting the 100% like the smart contract side and the backend side of Web3, right, on this AI framework. So I think fine tuning a model that actually like helped me spinning out actually dApps and is actually super useful from the developer's perspective. But actually walk us through a little bit those agent core functionality. I know you were passionate about like sharing screen and stuff, but show us a demo, anything that you want to share. Take it away.
Yeah, for sure. I'll do a quick demo to show you the core functionality of like how
Nice.
do you actually use Kawaii. And of course, we're always evolving this as well. And
Yes.
so,
So let me repeat. So the target audience are basically like smart contract developers. Like, is this like a beginner kind of like beginner smart contract developer, or can be used also by developers that are more advanced?
It should be used for all parties, right? I actually think that's even more beneficial for beginners, right? Because like
Mm.
blockchain development is always progressing because it's a relatively young industry.
Mhm.
And so, for example, the Solidity compiler is always being updated as well. More gas optimized contracts are coming out. And like, how do you intertwine this with documentation that's up to date, for example, right? And which resources do you actually use, especially with
Mhm.
more libraries coming out? And so I'm looking forward to how people use Kawaii, but it's meant for all audiences. And while
Nice.
it is focused on blockchain development, LLMs are very, very good in generalized development as well. And it's because we use a base LLM on top of Kawaii as well. It can be
Mhm.
used for traditional development as well. I'm looking forward to that.
Nice.
But yeah, one of the biggest principles that we have with Kawaii is that we don't want to make it where it feels like a hassle to develop using
Yeah, I
AI,
agree.
right?
I agree.
And so, like, the idea of like having to swap windows from ChatGPT over to your IDE or going IDE back to your chat window, installing different plugins, things like
Mhm.
that. Our belief is with AI agents, it should feel autonomous. It should feel like you're
You
working
can
with,
switch.
it
Yeah.
should feel like you're working with a human, right? And so the way that we design Kawaii is that it's a GitHub app. So I'm going to share over my screen here. And because predominantly, practically every developer uses source control in some form of fashion, right? And GitHub is I'm not sure if I disconnected there. Oh no, I lost Francesco. Can't tell if I either lost connection or he lost connection. Um, but we'll wait for Francesco to join back first. Yeah, just shot him a message, make sure that his connection is good, and then we'll go over a brief demo of Kawaii and how it's used in a real environment. Yeah, for the people joining here, our host just lost connection, so we're just waiting for him to come back, and then we'll resume the session.
I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. No, go for it. Go for it. I think I lost you when you were mentioning about the specific use case for advanced versus beginner.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, maybe we just start off with just resuming the demo here, and then just probably go from there.
Yes.
And that sounds like good.
Let's do it.
So let's do it, right?
Love the design, by
Oh,
the
thank
way.
you. Yeah, it's still a little bit waifu. We're actually working on a redesign right now where, we think about like software engineer, AI agents, should it we also think about like our marketing, right? And our brand, like, people who actually want to hire Kawaii. I mean, there is a certain amount of impression that we want to put upon them, like, oh, it is actual professional developer. So we're working on a redesign on that actually as well. But yeah, we have a principle that we really want to make it so it feels like you're integrating with another software engineer and you're working with another software engineer. And so the process of that is really simple. The first thing you do is that it's a GitHub app. So you click Hire Me, and then there's a GitHub app that you can publicly install. And then what's really important is that you basically give it a repository to contribute in. And one of our clients actually sent, which is a USDC wallet. And so I'm going to configure it to basically choose a repository that it should contribute to. And then click update access, right? And what this allows Kawaii to do is effectively now have read permissions for the repository. And under the hood, she's actually doing multiple different things. She's indexing the repo, right? She's keeping up to date with all the branches. And she has a RAG
Mm,
pipeline to basically allow her to navigate and understand the code base a lot better. And she's doing this behind the scenes, right? And so that way, it doesn't feel like a janky experience whenever you're waiting for it to index the code, update the code. She's constantly polling the GitHub repository. So that way you have a really amazing user experience whenever you're interacting with the agent, right? And then, from there, what we envision is that you just interact with the agent through GitHub, right? And so you'll set up a GitHub issue talking about what problem do you want to solve. And then Kawaii will be able to self-assign it to her. And then, either contribute either through like talking to you through the GitHub issue to clarify some details, and then set up a subsequent PR, right, to help you address that issue. And this
nice.
naturally flows with a developer experience anyhow, because like most developers are already contributing through GitHub, right? Whether it's open source repositories or private repositories, this is building on years of human workflows that are already defined. And so we wanted to integrate with that rather than like creating a separate chat UI where you had to go back and forth. We didn't want to replicate or duplicate the experience already. And so I'll show you an example on the Send repository as well. And so this is the Send
Nice.
repository, and
Yeah.
show you an example here of a PR where she's involved in as well. And so let me change the label. So every PR that Kawaii is involved with, it auto labels it through Kawaii. And one of the examples I love to make is like developers are like really bad at communication. And it's a little joke within like the developer community. Obviously, that's not 100%
That
true,
is
but
right.
also they take a lot of shortcuts, right? So they might not fill out their PR description. Like they'll set up, they do a lot of changes, but then they don't scribe the changes, right? And so one of the capabilities that Kawaii has is that she will read all the files changed, understand the context of what was changed inside the PR, and then auto generate a summary based off the changes made, right? And this is showing that she's capable of understanding the code within the context and providing a generated summary so that way it's very clear on what was changed, right? And so she understood that we're making the test more stable and exactly how were the changes made. We lost Francesco again, which is kind of funny. But I'll finish off a little bit for the audience as well. What are the different capabilities? So she was triggered through Zorax Big Boss, kind of like asking for a description.
Nice.
She also labels it, and so she's able to describe the PR, but as well understand the categories that it fits in. And then on top of that, she can also help you improve your code, and she's doing it directly through the GitHub UI. And so
Oh,
she uses the
nice.
GitHub UI to tell you like, hey, at exactly line 17 to 20, you have a bug in your test, and you should actually add some sort of check to improve the code. And then the developer can make the change, she will detect the change, and then mark it as resolved, right? And we're constantly involving her in like how does this pertain to blockchain development, right? Is eventually it's going to get to a point where we can actually there's many different ways where we can introduce this, right? There's a lot of open source Ethereum clients where we can
Mhm.
introduce Kawaii, right? And then she could help solve existing GitHub issues in those Ethereum
Yes.
clients. Ethereum is constantly evolving. It has constant EIPs. So can we accelerate
Yes.
development through there? Yeah, that would be fantastic to see, right? And then there's
This is super
people,
interesting.
yeah, and then there's also people who are building out protocols as well. And so a proper model that is really good at blockchain development, Solidity, we see a future where people will be able to create smart contracts, dApps, bring everything on chain way faster than they normally could.
Nice. And Eric, is it what's the performance today in terms of like QI, like performance like open PR, solve PRs, comment, like interacted issues? Like, is there like some kind of like matrix that you are, because it also depends the quality of those interaction too, right?
I 100% agree. Like, if you ever use AI and it gives you a janky response,
Mm.
it's almost like you lose trust in it. It's like, oh, this is pretty trash, right? Um, and so, like, I definitely heard like some comments on this on the early adoption of Devin, where they're like, Devin experience just isn't as good, and so like we stopped using it completely, right? And we're still very early on.
Mm.
We're experimenting with early clients today, so that way we have a closed loop feedback, a very tight closed feed loop back, so that way we can potentially keep improving Kauai. But we don't have exact metrics today. But she's actually participated in a lot of PRs in the Center repository today already. Probably,
Hmm.
yeah, 24 PRs where she was contributed, and she started on about
Crazy.
like a month ago. And so, it's kind of crazy, right? Because with AI agents, it becomes exponential,
Yes.
right? It's not just like she can only work on one
Yes.
repository while I'm sleeping. She can work on a billion repositories while I'm sleeping.
Yeah, it's scalable.
Yeah, it's extremely scalable, but we would definitely want to, keep the experience really nice. And so we see this expanding definitely more in the long term once we feel
Mhm.
confident with her performance in the short term as well.
And I mean, you said basically on performance side, but like, how was the journey on the architecture side? Did you guys kind of like, what are kind of the lesson learned, the key technical decisions? Because I assume like it was always kind of a trade-off. Yeah.
Certainly. Going into the architecture a lot more, right? Kauai is like, whenever I think about building
Mhm.
an AI agents, there's like three main components, maybe three or four main components on how your agent is built. The tools that it has, right? And so we built out custom tools specifically for GitHub contributions, and we're also looking into integrating MCP, and which is kind of like gives us access to even more tools, right? MCP has really picked up and
Mm.
increased that network effect of even improving Kauai's architecture even a lot more.
Mhm.
And so as we equip her with more tools, that increases her intelligence, right? But there are other ways to also increase her
Mhm.
intelligence. So we also have a RAG pipeline that's constantly indexing information
Mhm.
using on-chain, sorry, we have a RAG pipeline that's constantly indexing information on different repositories as well that helps build out on-chain development. And
Mhm.
so, for example, Agent Kit by CDP, we're constantly indexing information whenever they're making an
Yep.
update, right? And this helps us understand what functions are within the repository and what the agent can use, right? Um, and then as well, we're looking into leveraging how even on-chain data can help us within our RAG pipeline, right? And so like swaps,
Mhm. Mhm.
just data about different tokens, metadata, those type of information can really
Mhm.
help us. And so a lot of it is actually information-based database, right? The more information that we can actually
Mhm.
gather and curate for blockchain, that actually helps increase the intelligence for Kauai in terms of software development as well. And so we have like our data ingestion pipeline. On top of that, we are also looking into different tools that we can
Mhm.
incorporate. And then the final piece, which actually ties this all in
Nice.
together, is that we're currently leveraging different types of models within Kauai, right? And so
Mhm.
we've experimented around with like
Yes.
the early days, Llama 3.1 to 3.3. And then it's just amazing to see how so many more models are constantly innovating on the base level, right? Uh, it's just
Crazy.
absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And then once reinforcement learning kind of like hit and reasoning hit into the models as well,
Mhm.
we just saw like how Kauai exploded in terms of intelligence.
It's
And
impressive.
so right now we're actually it's
It's
really
impressive.
impressive. And I just like I can't believe this is definitely not the final form of base LLMs, right? With reinforcement learning
For
and
sure.
just like how reasoning is, embedded into these models, I can only see it going up from here, which is just nuts, right? And so we're actually experimenting with
Mhm.
different models within Kauai right now, right? And it's also just a mixture of like how do you balance costs as well. And so we're testing out the Gwen 32B model, Kill W Kill.
Hmm.
as a test to see how she performs. But
Yeah.
as well, we were testing out the DeepSeek R1 distilled version of one as well, to just
Hmm.
see, generally speaking, how
Yes.
it can perform as well. And then, yeah,
How I like it. Yeah. But how you define the performance? What are the things that you say, okay, this is better than the other? Like you have specific metrics in mind?
not necessarily, right? There are standardized benchmarks that test the performance of, how does it perform in Java? How does it perform in Golang? How does it perform in
Hmm.
Python? And a lot of like blockchain development is as well, writing code in these languages as well, right? But actually, to your point, whenever we talk about like true blockchain development, this is where like we're actually at the forefront
Hmm.
of it all. There isn't existing valuation on
Hmm.
how well does a model perform on Solidity. There isn't an existing benchmark on how well does it perform with Rust
Mm.
programs on Solana, right? And whenever you look at like, oh my God, this new model came out and it just topped the benchmarks, right? That actually doesn't include blockchain development at
Yes.
all, right? They're not actually performing those benchmarks against like blockchain development. And so, how do we, as like the world's first blockchain engineer AI agent, ensure that these models are performing and just as good as they're mentioning? There's a little bit of anecdotal evidence, but as
Mm.
well, we're actually in works right now to create our own evals for blockchain development, right? And the reason
Hmm.
why we're creating
Whoa,
yeah,
that's
so the reason
interesting.
why we're actually creating evals for blockchain development is because we're actually also working on our own fine-tuned model, right? Starting off with the 7B
Hmm.
parameter
Hmm.
model, and then potentially keep on pushing the limits there. And so, it's amazing how early on we are in terms of like blockchain LLMs and fine-tuned versions of it. But
Yes.
yeah, it's so early on that there isn't actually a solution for it. And that's literally what we have to solve for. So while we want to increase the performance of blockchain models, it's crazy to think that we don't even have an existing benchmark for it right now. And we have to create that ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, and even if we're doing those benchmark right now, not for like blockchain-based frameworks, is also closed source sometimes, right? So we need to make sure that we open source this
Yeah.
one. And I mean, one of the things that I like that you said was it's still too early. And, the fact that we're building also like tooling for like for maybe agents solving humans PR, it's also make us like, make me understand like, oh, what about agent to agent collaboration? Because I think maybe we're too early. I don't know. What do you think about that? Like I mean, how we are solving this social layer, the agent to agent collaborate, like coordination
Yeah.
side.
Agent to agent collaboration is really interesting to see how it all folds out, right? Because it's so early on.
Hmm.
Mother DAO was definitely.
And there is no framework, there is no RPC, there is no standard, no nothing, no
Yeah,
specs. Yeah.
it's really interesting, right? There are no specs for it right now, as far as I know. Everyone is trying to build out kind of like their own version of it, rightfully so, as well, right? Um, and like maybe from a framework perspective, I do believe who solves this problem is going to be a leading industry leader in this perspective. And a good example of this is actually
Yeah.
MCP, right? Um, there were other formats of MCP like OpenAI function calling and tooling before MCP, but it didn't
Mm.
actually gain that much traction because there wasn't backwards compatibility. There wasn't an easy way to integrate and adopt it. And the minute MCP came out with Anthropic, we just saw
Hmm.
a massive flywheel network effect happen where everyone was building on MCP. Everyone's talking about MCP and just became progressively even more attractable and then just kept on growing, right? And so whenever
Yes.
we think about, the idea of like agent commerce and how do agents build with each other and interact with each
Hmm.
other, I think that just naturally becomes a flywheel effect or a network effect in itself, right? Where like
Yes.
uh, there's an open standard for it. It doesn't matter if it's on one chain or another chain. If it's chain agnostic, I think that would be pretty huge as well. Just like the general idea that
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
can be interoperable with each other and interact with each other would be pretty huge. So I'm quite
Hmm.
bullish on it, but still very so
Yes.
very early on, right? There are going to be a lot of like nuances
Yes.
on well. how much do you charge for your agent, right? And well, you know, how much should
Mhm.
that actually cost, right? I think that's going to be a huge kind of
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
I don't know where it ends. And I think even like the Web2 market is also still trying to discover what should the price of an agent cost, right? And I'll give you an example. OpenAI, you saw the rumors where like the operator agent can cost 20K a month. Now, from an initial
Mhm.
point of view, you're like,
Yeah.
well, shit, that might be too much. You're paying AI way too much for
Mhm.
the agent. And then you look at kind of like the extremely large businesses that can afford it. And it's like, maybe they're thinking it from a different perspective. How much value can this agent produce for me? Uh, Maybe it can outproduce three
Yeah.
humans and therefore it's worth it actually, right? And so it's going to be interesting because
Mhm.
humans are the one building out the agent marketplaces, which then kind of like naturally
Mhm.
leads to a little bit of biases. And then like defining like
Yes.
where should these agents charge, I think naturally gets solved by the marketplace in itself as well. And so because especially in a
Yes.
decentralized marketplace, right? Because you know, agent marketplaces, I think in Web2 are already developing as well, but they have natural biases because you know a marketplace can feature
Mhm.
XYZ based off like a sponsorship, right?
Mhm.
Decentralized marketplaces can introduce governance, and then they can introduce a fair market, and then
Exactly.
agents will have an opportunity to truly thrive. And it's done all through blockchain rails, and that's also another thing that marketplaces really solve for on
Yes.
blockchain. Um, I just got back from ETH Denver, right? And I think like one of the largest questions I heard, which is kind of like, why agents with blockchain? Why introduce the blockchain piece as a whole, right? And
Oh,
so he'll using crypto rails, using blockchain as the settlement layer, has a true value proposition, and that's one of the bigger reasons to leverage
oh yeah.
agents with blockchain for sure.
Yeah.
Coinbase has this message, and
Yeah.
every AI agent needs a wallet, and I think it's a legit messaging for sure. It's a really good use
Mhm.
case for
Mhm.
AI agents.
Yeah, but that's why like we started something like Mother because we didn't want to reproduce everything DeFi Summer related that people were forking
Yeah,
dexes and the people that got dragged at the end were end users that were not actually like checking the performances and second is pushing agents on Web3 Rail, giving the one of the biggest value prop that is social graphs and also this on-chain attestation we are able to finally give a track record to each agent, meaning also having much more conscious decision from the AI agent consumer side. So I think this is why it's super exciting. And as you said, also having this fully on-chain and transparent track record, you can actually play much more with a free market of
yeah,
agent-to-agent service and so this is just one mini use case, but everything starts with this public registry for agents to have clear social graphs. If not, like first a agent builder will don't know which is the agent that will want to interact with, and then also agent consumer don't know which actually is kind of the OG agent out there that they want to trust with maybe their treasury management, with maybe their social identity management. There is a lot of things and it's just very exciting to see that but we definitely need to start with the fundamental side and because we don't want to reproduce because my assumption is not mine but you see already people speaking in crypto twitter like seeing 10 20 same agents doing the same thing so like vertical wise like we will have like 100 of agents doing the same things and the only way to distinguish is giving a track record on that side and that's why kind of like modern is super exciting for me because it's we need this backbone infrastructure before we are also like building up and also I like what you said about agent coordination right and because I wondered like for me quality is perfect is a perfect match with something like Solange with the devil
Yeah.
agent, like, but I also ask myself, which direction are we going? Are we going the direction of generalized agents, the super agent, or because of we need to train vertical data, we want to go in a verticalized agent? I think like I believe more that, especially for agent specific use case, you want a verticalized agent because you want to train containers and LLM specific to that. What is your
I
thinking about
definitely
that?
agree that vertical AI agents, as opposed to generalized agents, is the way to go.
Mhm,
Because simply put, right, even the AI scientists today are almost leaning towards like pre-training is almost completed. The generalized LMs are already there, right? We're getting somewhat close to AGI, depending on who you're asking. And so that's for
mhm,
generalized intelligence, right? But there's always going to be faster moving industries, faster moving startups. And so vertical AI agents and honing into vertical AI agents is key. And if someone has a history in Web3, you don't believe me. I mean, I always use Web2 as a good signal. Even Y Combinator, a lot of these other Web2 companies, investors are also seeing similar things where vertical AI agents is the play here. And I think that's what we're seeing fold out actually in this market as well in crypto. Um, but yeah, I mean, like agent
agree.
marketplaces, I have actually a question for you on kind of like how do you see it folding out as well? It got me
Mhm,
thinking a little bit. But uh,
mhm.
actually, it's the first time I heard of kind of like reputation, right? Like, what is the reputation behind your AI agent?
Agree. Yeah,
It's actually really interesting, and I kind of agree.
but we're learning.
I
Yeah,
agree, right?
but we're learning. You remember
Yeah, for
Dexys?
sure.
Yeah, you remember Dexys? There was no reputation, and the only reputation score was
Right.
volumes, and people were like getting coffee swap, matcha swap, like, and so many people got kind of racked. And you need to have a reputation system before even building on top of the coordination
I,
side.
I like to think of it as like we're kind of evolving into like right now it feels like all agents are freelancers, right? And even you look at like Upwork,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
or like or some Fiverr, and some other like freelancing like websites, reputation matters a lot on kind of like who these like to hire, right?
Hmm.
Who has a track record in delivering. And as well within crypto, hate to say it, but there are also a lot of fake agents that claim they do things and then simply don't do it. And so definitely, introduces a lot of rows, like you said, especially with the analogy with Nexus. And so introducing reputation, whether that's like,
Hmm.
but do you see that being reputation based off Hillman, uh, like Hillman evaluation, or is that,
I think it's a good
yeah,
point.
or agent evaluation?
No, I think I think like we need to define which attributes are part of this attestation, right? Because a TVL of an agent is only worth it to discuss when it's a DeFi specific agent. Like that's why I ask you also the question about quality, like how you define the performance. Because sometimes opening and solving PRs, it will not be enough because you need to provide probably the best quality PR experience that is equal, at least equal or better than the average like a developer interacting with
Yeah,
this PR. So you also need to have a full history of like the first the PR changes, but also like the specific repo,
yeah,
and it's hard, right? So probably attributes is depending on the use case. When we were doing like DeFi heavy agents, probably like stuff like treasuries, treasury amount actually of ownership, TVL based on the user side. But if you look at socials, for example, it could be social interaction, impression, quality. I really like, for example, on the social side, what Kaito is bringing on the
100%.
table because it's another dimension of smart. I would say smart percentage, smart post. We definitely need to fine tune the model there. So I'm happy that they came out with also the anti-plagiarism, what was that the public attestation on the plagiarism side, so that you know that it's not just AI refurbished, it's actually unique content. It's actually very interesting. But this is just AI and this is just DeFi, right? There are so many other use cases that we need to think about, and every use case probably have the best attribution that can define the performance or the attestation and the reputation
Yeah,
system. And that's one thing. And the other way that we can do is reputation based on
Mm,
peers reputation. So I don't give attributes. I say the Kowali is great because he solved me these PRs, and someone else is actually doing that. So he's actually is basically like building reputation based on peers review. If you think about, let's go back in DeFi summer, like if you knew that matcha swap was not the right way to go, you will not actually building the reputation on a peer review side. So you probably want to have a mix of both attribution and also like peer reviewing that is fully on chain. Like think about like also DAO
right.
proposals, how they're kind of like managed. I really like it. But the biggest kind of hurdle of DAOs today that I think, this is more personally, is that the DAO coordination side was always being an issue, and that's why kind of I'm excited about to see also the agent coordination side for specific DAO use case too. But yeah, but I mean, but going back to Koalis, I mean, the PR side, the developer support side is huge here, especially just on commenting side, on opening sub issue side, or even tracking most important PRs. Like for example, I know repos that have 8,000 open
Yeah,
PRs,
it's
and
insane.
priority is very important.
No, 100%.
And I think that's my.
I really like
Mhm. Go for it.
Mother DAO's kind of like pragmatic, kind of like approach to agent to agent interactions.
Mhm.
Because I
Yes.
think something really call out is how many agents are there out there as of today that are fully autonomous, like actually
Mhm.
fully autonomous, like they can just do everything.
Mhm.
Uh, Very few, if none. And I say that because we, as an industry, still see that LLMs have hallucination, and there needs to be safeguards to it. And usually, the
Yes.
biggest safeguard to it is humans, right? We as humans are the ones overseeing the AI, right? And it's really important to acknowledge that fact is that we're probably not at a stage yet where it is truly fully autonomous, where we can just let it loose and have it interact with each other, and then trust that the agent will actually execute and provide security over there. And so like introducing social graphs, peer reviews, things are kind of like gives heuristics to the agent to make a decision is really I really like the approach. Um, and yeah, that's kind of like where we are approaching with Kawaii as well. Um,
Nice.
Theoretically, like in a post-agentic world, Kawaii goes out and solicits and as well just does BD to get software developers to or software companies to
Hmm.
contract her.
Hmm.
Um, that being said, we're obviously not in that
Hmm.
world. There are many skeptics in kind of like this industry. It's like, well, AI can't replace this, right? AI agents can't do this. That's obviously changing over time. But as well, just like the stigma of it or like the idea of like adopting it has its own little hurdle, right? And so our approach with
Yes.
Kawaii is that we're still engaging with like traditional software companies that are building out protocols or dApps, right? And so like Sen
Hmm.
is a good example. They're still very early on their AI journey, but they're a startup. They acknowledge that
Yes.
AI can help them a lot. A lot of their engineers are using AI, and so naturally it was a good fit for them to integrate
Hmm.
Kawaii and test the waters, right? And you know, in moving that
Nice.
forward, we actually see us growing that way, where like people still want to see a human behind the scenes right now that can oversee it. And
Yes.
it doesn't matter because we're still building up the reputation for Kawaii. It's almost like you mentioned with MutterDAO,
Hmm.
except it's
Hmm.
off chain instead of on chain. The peer
Hmm.
reviews are like word of mouth and things like that. It's not necessarily on chain, but
Yes.
long term,
Yes.
it would be interesting to
Yes.
see that actually all on chain, so that way whoever's evaluating Kawaii can actually see the reputation track record
Of
and who's
course.
connected with Kawaii through a social graph. Be pretty cool.
Yes. Yeah, I really like the guys from, for example, Karma 3 Labs. They're doing basically on-chain peer-to-peer reviews. There is a lot of like different projects on that, but reputation is definitely something important. But the way that we can actually go ahead, even before something like MotherDAO is actually like existing on the ground, is I think the agent need to run and need to solve. Like I think fine tuning it is something that need to kind of like be there, and starting as early as
Yeah.
possible, right? Because it's always kind of like a fine tuning side. And as you mentioned challenges, you mentioned different lessons learned, and for all the AI builders out there, what were kind of, I don't know, the main challenge and lesson learned if you need to kind of like start from scratch again? They say do this instead this, or don't lose time to this because this can be solved. Any kind of lesson learned to other agent
Oh,
builders?
absolutely. I actually created an agent builder guide, ABG. It's a series that I've created based off kind of like
Nice.
my learning lessons of creating agents. I think the most predominant thing, right, is that like,
Oh, we
oh
need
yeah,
to share that.
definitely. But
Yeah.
like, AI is actually reducing the cost to build, right? And so like focus on capital is becoming a lot less increasingly important. You already see like with a lot of like vibe coding, people are creating games within 2 seconds with just one prompt, right? And like the cost of
Crazy.
build is like becoming increasingly low. And so, where can you actually accrue value to your agent? I would say the largest one is to focus on product market fit and use AI to help you find that product market
Mhm.
fit and MVP really quickly. Um, I think once you are able to find some level of product market fit, a wedge into the market, then it increasingly becomes a lot easier to introduce capital, introduce people who are interested. And so, most importantly, as you build out your agent, make sure that you're validating the market. There's actually a true need for it, and that
Mhm.
AI can actually truly produce value for it, and you could prove that. And yeah, it's funny, right? AI on AI on AI. Use AI to simply help you accelerate and prove this out. Uh, and so that's, I wouldn't say it's like
Yes.
it's a learning lessons from like multiple failed startups, multiple businesses, and now of course like working on a tokenized
Mhm.
agent. I see a lot of builders, just trying to focus on just a big idea, but like people can simply ship within a day now, and that's what you're competing with in this space. And so if you aren't shipping and you aren't trying to prove product market fit, then you're going to have a lot more time with success, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, we need to
Yeah.
finish up here, but the journey to MVP is definitely shortening up, is
Yeah.
accelerating like crazy. So the true value prop here is the distribution power. Like I think this is also very exciting because the kind of the zero to hero slash kind of like time to MVP will be lower. So there is actually a lot of other ways to go to problem market fit and distribution and kind of like know-how around the grow strategy could be also actually much more important at this point, right? And also getting feedback as soon as possible. We were waiting 6 months to get feedbacks from a product. Now it's two,
It's
3 days. So actually the cost is impressive.
100% agree. Distribution is king. We see it all the time. A good example of this is even Coinbase with USDC. How Circle, which is like the creator of USDC, they leverage Coinbase to help distribute and grow USDC. Distribution is king with your AI agent,
Mhm.
and yeah, like it's just crazy to think how fast you can now accelerate with MVP. And maybe to close this all off, that's exactly why we're doing out Hawaii. More,
Mhm.
we see a future where everything effectively becomes tokenized and everything becomes on chain, and you'll be able to use Kawaii to help accelerate that vision as well. And so you're building out a smart contract, you're building out dApps, you're building out a protocol. Kawaii will be there to help you build that even faster.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, and the fact that you guys are continuously training quality is actually very, very useful. And before we close up, what is coming next for quality, like roadmap wise? Any features specific, any integration on other developer tooling? What do you want to kind of like share that is an alpha, but you can share it
For
publicly?
sure. We're doing
Yeah.
multiple things. Currently, we're on Solana. We're working on a migration over to Base because it simply just aligns with our vision a lot further along. As well, we care a lot about distribution and how we can introduce people to the idea of vibe coding and Kawaii. And so we're also working
Mhm.
on this
Mhm.
project that's going to be announced very soon as well. And I guess this is the first time where we announce it, but basically everyone on X will now have a personalized page that's created by Kawaii. And so, kind of think about like everyone,
Ooh,
what
nice.
we're doing is we're indexing all your X information, what you posted, and create a personalized page. Kawaii will be the one autonomously creating it, and then it will be exposed and you can use it. Everyone needs a resume, right? Everyone needs a website. And so now we're going to be
Yes.
accelerating that with Kawaii as well. But yeah, a lot more news coming in the future.
Nice.
I'm looking forward to it.
Nice. That means we need to do a part two here. Maybe like, in a couple of
Oh, yeah.
months, when you can actually bring some other updates. And I'm definitely excited also to see the coordination side. Maybe, I will start using Solange and then I will get Quali help me with the PR side. There is a lot of like support functions here on the coordination side, and hopefully like an integration with Modder, and even like having some kind of like developer, I would say developer support or even developer. I think like we will serve Koala in the future,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because it will be much more
You
24/7
never
and
know.
stuff. So
You might have
that's
someone.
exciting. Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
you might
Thanks so
have
much.
someone running this entire podcast for you, which kind of raises a question. But
It's
yeah, this was awesome.
crazy.
Thanks for having me.
There's a question of my sense. Of course. No, of course. Let's do it. Awesome. Thanks, Eric. And looking forward also to meet you IRL soon. And yeah, until then, let's plan for a part two. And feel free also to share the links. We will also share a bunch of links. And yeah, no, excited to see. And thanks everyone again for being part of like this podcast. Give me this 40 minutes. I think we were a little bit on out of time, but I think it was super worth it. I really enjoyed the conversation, and yeah, I think we are good to go. Also, like for anyone that is watching, like this mother project that we just mentioned has officially launched. Also, check out all our kind of like live streams where we're basically like interviewing strong AI agent builders like you, basically building cool stuff. And I think we have a Discord where if you're building a cool agent and you want to actually like come and either present or just showing to all the agent builder communities, this is Discord, and we have a specific channel for like shilling your agent, just sharing what you want to build, or just sharing with other developers the problems that you have, the lesson learned that you get, similar to what Eric described is us in this live stream. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Eric, and looking forward to see you next IRL or in the metaverse
Amazing. Thanks
next.
everyone for having me. Bye.
Awesome.